She trusted a stranger she met online and vanished within minutes of boarding the cruise. Who was he really, and what dark plan was waiting behind that charming smile? Tonight, secrets will be revealed, but some truths are far more horrifying than anyone could imagine. Emily sat cross-legged on her bed, laptop balanced precariously on her knees, scrolling through a carousel of faces she didn't know. Each swipe offered a promise, a potential escape from the loneliness that had wrapped around her life like a heavy fog. Her apartment smelled faintly of coffee and the lingering perfume of yesterday's errands. She paused at a profile, Daniel. Sharp jawline, piercing eyes, and a smile that seemed to reach beyond the screen. There was something unnervingly perfect about him. Not just the polished photos, but the carefully chosen words in his bio. Adventurer, dreamer, seeker of stories untold. Emily's heart skipped. A small, rational part of her whispered caution, but it was drowned by curiosity. She typed a hesitant message. "Hey, your profile is intriguing." Almost immediately, a notification pinged. "I was hoping you'd say that. You seem different from the others." His reply was warm, playful, and somehow intimate, as if he could see her through the glow of the screen. They exchanged messages that stretched into hours, evolving from casual banter to whispered confessions. Emily found herself laughing at his jokes, sharing snippets of her life she usually kept hidden. Every word was carefully measured, yet it felt spontaneous, authentic. Her mind wandered to the idea of meeting him in person. She imagined coffee dates, late-night walks, conversations that lasted until sunrise. The fantasy was intoxicating. But in the back of her mind, a shadow lingered, a question she didn't dare voice aloud. Could someone so seemingly perfect really exist? The next day, her phone buzzed again. "I want to show you something special. How about a cruise next month, just the two of us?" Emily's pulse quickened. She hesitated, scrolling back through their conversations, analyzing every word, every pause. It was impulsive, perhaps reckless, but the thrill was irresistible. She agreed. As the day passed, Emily's excitement mingled with a subtle unease. Her friends had cautioned her before. Strangers online were dangerous, deceptive. She pushed the thought aside, attributing her apprehension to overthinking. After all, Daniel seemed trustworthy, charming, kind, attentive. Later that evening, she noticed something odd. A small notification popped up on her laptop, an alert from an unfamiliar app she didn't remember downloading. She dismissed it, telling herself it was probably harmless. But deep down, a flicker of doubt stirred. The universe had a way of sending signs, she reminded herself. Only she wasn't sure if she could, or wanted to, see them clearly. Emily's thoughts spiraled into what-ifs as she prepared for bed. She imagined boarding the cruise, the sun glinting off the water, Daniel's hand brushing against hers in a casual yet intimate gesture. The fantasy blurred with reality. She drifted into sleep with a mixture of anticipation and anxiety, unaware that the careful, charming man she had fallen for online was preparing the first threads of a web from which she might never escape. Somewhere behind his polished smile, Daniel's intentions were already unfolding, dark, calculated, and hidden beneath layers of charm. And as the night deepened, Emily's phone buzzed once more. A single message, "Pack lightly, adventure awaits." Her heart raced with excitement. Yet, if only she knew, it was a journey that would not lead to the paradise she imagined. The sun glinted off the ocean as Emily stepped onto the cruise ship, her small suitcase rolling beside her with a soft click-clack. The scent of salt water mingled with polished wood and luxury perfumes, creating an intoxicating mixture that made her heart flutter. She glanced up at the towering vessel, its white hull gleaming, decks stretching high into the sky. It felt surreal, almost dreamlike, as if she had entered a different world, one far removed from her quiet apartment and lonely evenings. Daniel was waiting at the gangway, his smile flawless, his posture relaxed. "Emily," he said, his voice smooth like velvet, "welcome aboard." "Ready for the adventure of a lifetime?" She smiled, a mixture of excitement and nervous anticipation. "I think so," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. Her fingers brushed against his as he helped her lift her suitcase onto the deck. The touch sent a small jolt through her, a mix of electricity and unease. The ship's interior was breathtaking. Chandeliers sparkled in the grand atrium, Marble floors reflected light like liquid, and the hum of conversations filled the air. Emily's eyes darted around, taking in the opulence. Couples laughing over champagne, families bustling toward cabins, and crew members gliding silently, efficient and invisible. She felt both exhilarated and strangely vulnerable. Daniel guided her through the corridors, pointing out amenities: a pool, a spa, elegant dining rooms. "I thought we could start with dinner tonight," he said, his tone casual but deliberate. "Just us, no distractions." Emily nodded, feeling a mix of gratitude and caution. There was something carefully orchestrated in his gestures, the way he spoke, the way he always seemed one step ahead. As the evening sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of crimson and gold, Emily found herself on the balcony of her cabin, leaning against the railing. The ocean stretched endlessly, waves catching the dying light. For a moment she felt free, untethered, as if the world outside this ship didn't exist, but the feeling was fleeting. A shadow crossed the balcony, and she realized she wasn't alone. One of the crew members, a tall man with a neutral expression, lingered just beyond the glass doors. He made no move to speak, simply watched. Emily's stomach tightened. Something about his presence felt off, not threatening exactly, but unsettlingly precise. Daniel's voice called from behind, warm and familiar. "Ready for dinner?" Emily turned, forcing a smile, masking the prickle of unease crawling up her spine. She followed him, each step echoing slightly against the polished floors. The crew member's gaze lingered for a heartbeat longer than comfortable before he disappeared around a corner, as if swallowed by the ship itself. Later, during dinner, Daniel was charming as ever, attentive, witty, always reading her reactions. He asked questions, laughed at her jokes, and held her gaze a little too long. Emily felt caught between fascination and a subtle fear she couldn't quite name. She noticed a group of men at a nearby table, watching them with interest. Their glances were quick, calculated, almost imperceptible, but they made her skin crawl. Back in her cabin that night, Emily unpacked her belongings slowly, her mind racing. The ship rocked gently beneath her, waves lapping against the hull with a hypnotic rhythm. A small notification flashed on her phone. She hadn't realized it had signal at all, but it was a message from an unknown number. "She's on board." "Keep her calm." Emily froze, heart pounding, her pulse a frantic drum in her ears. She looked around the lavish room, suddenly aware of the isolation, the corridors stretching endlessly, the ocean beyond the glass offering no escape. Somewhere Daniel was smiling, oblivious to her inner tension, or perhaps aware and perfectly indifferent. Emily sat on the edge of the bed, fingers trembling slightly, and whispered to herself, "What have I gotten into?" And as the night deepened, the ship sailed on, carrying her further from safety and closer to the darkness that awaited. Emily awoke to the gentle rocking of the ship, sunlight streaming through the cabin's large porthole. Daniel was already dressed, leaning casually against the balcony railing, a steaming cup of coffee in hand. He looked effortless, unassuming, yet Emily's unease lingered. There was something in the calmness of his posture that felt deliberate, calculated, as if every movement had been rehearsed to perfection. "Good morning," he said, smiling warmly. "Sleep well?" Emily nodded, keeping her voice steady. "Yes, mostly." He approached, his smile widening just enough to disarm suspicion. "I thought I'd take us on a little tour of the upper decks. Breakfast under the sun, just you and me." The offer sounded innocent, romantic even, but Emily's mind raced. Every gesture, every word from Daniel seemed designed to tighten a subtle hold over her. As they walked, Daniel shared stories about his life, trips he had taken, experiences he claimed shaped him. Each anecdote was carefully structured to charm, to inspire trust, to make Emily feel like she was the only person in the world he confided in. Occasionally he paused, asking for her thoughts, listening intently, nodding as if her opinions mattered more than the words themselves. It was intoxicating and terrifying. The crew moved around them silently, efficient and composed, as if part of a larger choreography. Emily noticed glances exchanged between Daniel and certain staff members, furtive, almost conspiratorial. She tried to dismiss it, attributing her unease to paranoia. But the small, almost imperceptible details gnawed at her subconscious. Over breakfast, Daniel leaned closer, lowering his voice. "You know, Emily, most people would never take a chance." They stay in safe routines, predictable lives, but you're different. That's why I knew I had to meet you in person." His words were flattering, seductive, designed to disarm her caution. Emily smiled faintly, feeling the familiar tug of excitement mixed with dread. "Different how?" she asked. "You take risks," he replied, his eyes locking with hers. "You're curious, brave." "That's rare, and rare is irresistible." His tone was almost hypnotic, each word carefully weighted, a subtle manipulation she didn't realize she was absorbing. As the morning progressed, Emily began to notice inconsistencies in Daniel's stories. Names of people he mentioned didn't quite match, timelines felt off. Her instincts whispered warning, but he had already built a web of trust and fascination around her, every compliment, every intimate glance anchoring her to him. Later, while he excused himself to make a call, Emily peeked at his phone left carelessly on the table. The screen displayed a cryptic message: "Ensure she is on board. Prepare for the next step." Her stomach tightened, a cold wave of fear washing over her. The reality that something was wrong began to seep through the carefully constructed illusion. Emily's thoughts spiraled, mixing dread with disbelief. Could the man she had come to admire, trust, even feel affection for, truly be orchestrating something sinister? Her heart pounded as she considered the possibility. And yet, part of her wanted to believe in the charm, in the carefully cultivated persona that had drawn her so completely. When Daniel returned, his presence filled the cabin like a wave, erasing her fleeting moment of doubt. "Ready for a little adventure?" he asked, his voice light, almost playful. He extended his hand, and Emily hesitated before taking it, caught between attraction and fear. The day continued with laughter and small excursions around the upper decks. Emily tried to push away her growing suspicions, focusing on the sun, the gentle breeze, the false security of Daniel's smile. But deep inside, the unease had taken root, a seed she couldn't shake. As night fell and the ship's lights glittered against the dark ocean, Emily stood at the balcony, replaying the cryptic message in her mind. A shadow passed across the cabin doorway and she realized she wasn't alone. Someone, just out of sight, was watching. Her pulse quickened. The charming facade of Daniel, the seductive illusion of paradise, was beginning to crack. And she knew, even if she didn't yet understand the full scope, that her journey had taken a perilous turn. Somewhere in the shadows of the ship, the game had begun. The following morning, Emily awoke to the sound of distant music drifting through the corridors. She rubbed her eyes, trying to shake off a lingering sense of unease that had settled deep in her chest. The previous day had been intoxicating, filled with sunlight, laughter, and Daniel's carefully crafted charm. But as the memory of the cryptic message flashed in her mind, a small knot of anxiety tightened. Breakfast was in the ship's grand dining hall, a glittering expanse of polished wood, chandeliers, and mirrored walls. Daniel led her to a corner table, his hand brushing hers occasionally, each touch casual yet calculated. Emily smiled, forcing herself to relax, but she couldn't ignore the fleeting sense that she was being observed. Across the room, she noticed the same group of men from the previous evening. Their eyes flicked toward them briefly before moving on, but their presence felt deliberate, unsettling. Emily dismissed the feeling as paranoia, convincing herself she was reading too much into ordinary ship guests. Still, a shiver crawled down her spine. Later, as Daniel excused himself to make a call for reservations, Emily wandered the deck, letting the sun warm her face. The ocean stretched endlessly, hypnotic in its motion, yet she couldn't shake the unease creeping into her thoughts. A crew member passed closely, glancing at her with a flicker of recognition, then quickly looking away. Emily froze, studying him. Something about the quick, deliberate movement didn't feel natural. Curiosity overcame caution. She tried to peek at a clipboard the crew member carried, but caught nothing more than passenger lists and meal orders. Still, the encounter left a lingering sense of dread, a subtle warning that she couldn't fully articulate. Returning to her cabin, she found a folded piece of paper tucked under the door. Her heart raced as she unfolded it. The note read, "Trust no one completely, observe quietly." No signature, no further explanation. Panic mingled with confusion. She wondered if it was a prank or a message meant for someone else entirely. Daniel arrived moments later, cheerful and unaware, or pretending to be, of the storm brewing inside her mind. Feeling all right, he asked casually, brushing imaginary dust from his jacket. "Fine," she said quickly, tucking the note into her bag. "Just a little overwhelmed by all the activity on the ship," he smiled, leaning in slightly. "I get it. So much to see, so many people, and you're trying to keep up. Don't worry. We'll make this perfect together." His words wrapped around her like a warm blanket, dulling the edge of her anxiety, and Emily found herself nodding, willing herself to trust him again. That afternoon, Emily explored more of the ship, attempting to convince herself the previous warning signs were coincidences. She noticed subtle oddities, crew members who appeared where they shouldn't, whispers she caught out of the corner of her ear, shadows flitting across corridors too quickly to be natural. Yet each time unease struck, Daniel's presence reassured her. He laughed, touched her shoulder, asked questions about her favorite destinations, and slowly eroded the tension building in her mind. By evening, Emily felt torn between instinct and desire. The warnings, the strange glances, the anonymous note, the cryptic message from yesterday were present, yet she had chosen to ignore them, to focus instead on the sunlight, the smiles, the carefully curated charm of the man she was beginning to admire. She lay on her bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to rationalize everything. Somewhere in the distance, muffled laughter echoed, blending with the low hum of the ship's engines. She thought she was alone, safe in her cabin, but a small, persistent voice whispered otherwise. And then she noticed it, a shadow in the reflection of the window, moving independently of the moonlight. Emily froze, pulse accelerating. The game had begun, and ignoring the signs would no longer protect her. The evening descended like a velvet curtain over the ship, the horizon painted in bruised purples and deep oranges. Emily adjusted her dress in the cabin mirror, fingers trembling slightly. She could feel the tension coiling in her stomach, a warning she had been trying to suppress all day. The note, the shadows, the strange glances, all of them had been a prelude to something she could no longer ignore. Daniel knocked lightly on the cabin door before entering, smiling warmly as if nothing had happened. "Ready for a special evening?" he asked. His eyes were bright, his charm effortless, but Emily sensed the subtle edge beneath his smile. She nodded, her voice tight. "Yes, I think so." He guided her through the ship's dimly lit corridors toward the lower decks, the air growing heavier, filled with muffled laughter, music, and the scent of expensive perfume. Shadows moved at the edges of her vision, crew members passing without acknowledgement. Emily's pulse quickened. She realized she was no longer just following a romantic adventure. She was entering a space she didn't fully understand, orchestrated entirely by Daniel. They arrived at a door slightly ajar, golden light spilling into the hallway. "Just a private party," he said smoothly, giving her hand a reassuring squeeze. "Something exclusive." "You'll love it." Emily hesitated for a fraction of a second, but followed, caught between trust and growing fear. Inside, the room was lavish and opulent, filled with guests she didn't recognize. Music throbbed softly, a rhythm that seemed to sync with the growing tension in her chest. Men and women mingled, but Emily couldn't shake the feeling that something about the gathering was wrong. The conversations were clipped, polite, almost mechanical. Daniel moved confidently among them, introducing Emily as if she were a prize, not a person. She noticed it then, a small cluster of men lingering near the far wall, their eyes occasionally flicking toward her. Something primal in Emily's instincts screamed danger. She wanted to leave, to turn back, but the exits were few and unfamiliar. Daniel's hand rested lightly on her back, guiding her through the crowd. "Relax," he whispered. "Everything is under control." The words were meant to soothe, but they only heightened her awareness, making the growing dissonance impossible to ignore. Emily's mind raced. Why was the atmosphere so tense? Why did the guests seem almost rehearsed, like actors playing roles she wasn't meant to understand? She tried to smile, to laugh politely at Daniel's casual jokes, but the pit in her stomach grew heavier with each passing minute. As the evening wore on, Daniel excused himself momentarily. Emily took the opportunity to glance around. In the corner of the room, she saw a door partially hidden behind a curtain, slightly ajar. Shadows flickered beyond it. She felt a cold shiver trace her spine. Something lurked beyond that door, something not meant for her eyes. Suddenly, a crew member appeared nearby, speaking in a hushed tone. "You shouldn't be here," he said, his expression unreadable. "Go back to him, now." Before she could respond, he vanished into the crowd as silently as he appeared. Emily's heart pounded in her chest. Her hands shook as she realized she was trapped between charm and threat, seduction and danger. She had ignored the warning signs for too long, lulled by Daniel's manipulations and the illusion of control he projected. A moment later, Daniel returned, taking her hand again. "Shall we?" he asked, eyes glinting in the dim light. There was something unsettlingly calm in his demeanor, as if he already knew she had glimpsed more than she should have. Emily nodded numbly, letting herself be guided deeper into the room. And then she was led to a small, windowless chamber. The door closed behind her with a soft, deliberate click. The temperature dropped, the music fading into a dull echo. Emily's pulse raced. The air was heavy, thick with the scent of polished wood and faint cologne. She turned to Daniel, searching for reassurance, but his smile had taken on a sharp edge, calculated and unreadable. The lights dimmed further, and from the shadows a figure moved closer. Emily's stomach twisted. The illusion of romance, of adventure had dissolved. She now saw the truth. Daniel's charm had been a mask, the party a lure. She was alone, isolated, and entirely at the mercy of the plan she had walked into blindly. Her breath caught as the door clicked again, locking from the outside. The door clicked shut, and the chamber became a suffocating cage. Emily's eyes darted around the dimly lit room, trying to find any sign of escape. Panic surged through her veins, cold and electrifying. The laughter, the music, the charm, all of it now felt like a cruel lie meticulously orchestrated to trap her. Her pulse thudded violently in her ears, each beat echoing the terror building in her chest. Daniel stood a few feet away, leaning against the wall casually, as if this were merely another charming game. "Relax, Emily," he said softly, but the tone had shifted. The warmth was gone, replaced by a precision that made her skin crawl. "You've done so well following instructions, you've been very compliant." "What is this?" Emily's voice quavered. "Why am I here?" His smile widened, but it was cold now, predatory. "You see, you're valuable, people like you, they're in demand, and I knew you'd come willingly." "All it took was a little charm, a little trust." He paused, letting the words sink in. "And now you're mine to deliver." The words struck Emily like a physical blow. Her mind reeled. All the late-night messages, the private parties, the careful attention. It had never been genuine. Every moment had been a calculated step toward this inevitable betrayal. Her stomach twisted, bile rising as the truth crystallized. Daniel had orchestrated everything, using her emotions, her desire for connection, to manipulate her into his hands. She stumbled backward, chest heaving, searching for any sense of logic, but there was none. The realization cut deeper than fear. It was a piercing grief, a sense of betrayal so profound it left her breathless. Her trust, her curiosity, her hope for a romantic escape had been weaponized against her. Emily's mind flickered through moments she had ignored. The subtle glances of the crew, the anonymous note tucked under her door, the cryptic message on Daniel's phone. Each warning, each tiny misalignment she had brushed aside, now screamed at her with the clarity of hindsight. She had known in some part of her consciousness that something was wrong, but desire and trust had blinded her to danger. Daniel's calm, measured steps drew him closer. "There's no need to panic," he said smoothly, voice almost soothing. "If you cooperate, everything will be easier. If not..." He let the threat hang in the air, unspoken but unmistakable. Emily's breathing quickened. The room felt impossibly small, the walls closing in as terror gave way to resolve. She couldn't let herself collapse under fear. Somehow she needed to find a way out to survive. Her gaze scanned the room for anything she could use, a door, a tool, anything, then froze. In the far corner, partially hidden by shadows, she noticed another figure, a young woman trembling, eyes wide with fear, restrained but conscious. Emily's heart lurched. She wasn't alone. This wasn't a single victim scenario. It was systematic, a carefully orchestrated trafficking operation. The realization hit her like ice. Daniel had lured more than just her. Her stomach twisted as the implications sank in. Each detail, each charming word and subtle touch from Daniel had been a trap, calculated to disarm, isolate, and control. Every instinct she had tried to suppress, the unease, the flashes of warning, had been correct. She had ignored them at her own peril. Daniel's gaze shifted toward the shadowed figure, then back to Emily. "Time to make choices," he said, as if discussing dinner plans instead of human lives. The room was silent except for the muffled thrum of music from the upper deck. Emily's mind raced, trying to process, to plan, to survive. The room felt like a pressure cooker, the tension unbearable. Emily realized she had to act, to move, to think. But every step, every decision would be under the eyes of men who had already calculated her every reaction. Her fear coiled into a cold, determined resolve. She would not go quietly. She would find a way to survive, to fight back. But first, she had to understand the full scope of Daniel's betrayal. Then, just as the adrenaline spiked, the sound of approaching footsteps echoed outside the door. Emily froze, heart hammering, as a heavy hand turned the knob. The door began to open. Emily's heart pounded like a drum in her chest as the door swung open. A tall, shadowed figure filled the frame, one of the men from the party. Her eyes darted frantically around the small, dimly lit room. The woman in the corner trembled silently, too afraid to speak. Emily's mind raced. She had to act. She had to get out. The man stepped closer, slow, deliberate. "Don't struggle," he warned, his voice low and commanding. Emily's stomach twisted, fear and determination warring inside her. She needed a plan, any plan, to escape. Her eyes swept the room. A fire extinguisher leaned against the wall near the door. Quick, precise movements. She lunged, knocking it into the man with a heavy thud. He staggered, giving her just enough time to dart toward the small window at the far end of the room. It was locked, but she yanked on it anyway, testing the frame. Nothing. Panic surged anew. The walls seemed to close in, suffocating, the low hum of the ship beneath her feet now a sinister rhythm. Daniel's calm voice echoed in her mind. "Trust me, Emily." She spat the thought away, realizing how entirely he had manipulated her. Emily pivoted back to the door and froze. The other men had entered silently, blocking her path. Her breath hitched. Every escape route she imagined collapsed before her. The woman in the corner whimpered, eyes pleading. Emily's chest tightened. She couldn't save both of them, not yet. Desperation sharpened her instincts. She grabbed a chair, swinging it with all her strength. It crashed against the nearest man, staggering him, giving Emily a few steps of precious distance. The metallic clang of the chair echoed in the chamber. The men recovered quickly, their movements precise, almost rehearsed. It was clear this wasn't improvisation. This was a coordinated, methodical trap. Emily's mind raced. There had to be a way to reach the stairs, the lifeboat deck, anything. She bolted toward the corner, scraping her knuckles along the walls, heart hammering, adrenaline burning through her veins. Her legs felt like lead, yet she moved with a frantic determination she hadn't known she possessed. A hand shot out, gripping her ankle. She screamed, twisting violently, breaking free for a moment, only to stumble across a narrow hallway. The corridor stretched endlessly, lights flickering above, shadows looming large. Emily's chest burned, her lungs gasping for air. Every instinct screamed to keep moving, to not let fear paralyze her. Somewhere ahead, she heard muted voices, footsteps. Daniel's laughter carried faintly from a distance. The sound sent icy dread down her spine. He was everywhere, yet nowhere. The corridors of the ship had become a labyrinth, a cage designed to disorient and trap her. Emily stumbled into a small storage area, slamming the door behind her. She pressed her back against it, listening. The footsteps passed by, then faded, leaving only the distant hum of the ship's engines. Relief surged briefly, but it was fleeting. She realized with a sinking horror that she had nowhere safe to go. Every corridor, every deck was under observation, every exit a potential trap. Her hands shook as she surveyed the cramped room. Crates stacked high against the walls offered temporary concealment, but no permanent solution. She had survived the initial pursuit, but the realization was crushing. This was only the beginning. Escape was possible only in theory. In practice, Daniel and his accomplices had anticipated every move, prepared for every reaction. Emily sank to the floor, chest heaving, mind racing. Fear had sharpened her awareness, but it had also trapped her in a cage of her own making. The illusion of freedom had been shattered, leaving only the stark reality of danger. She wasn't free, not yet, not even close. A sudden sound outside made her freeze, footsteps, heavy, deliberate, closing in. Emily's eyes widened, someone was coming back. And as the doorknob rattled, she realized the next confrontation was inevitable. Emily crouched behind the stacked crates, heart pounding in her ears. The rattling of the doorknob had stopped, replaced by the soft hum of the ship's engines and faint footsteps receding down the corridor. She dared not move. Every nerve in her body screamed danger, but then a whisper almost imperceptible reached her ears. "Psst, hey, over here." Emily froze. The voice was soft, cautious, urgent. She scanned the shadows, spotting a figure crouched behind a crate across the room. A man, barely visible in the dim light, gestured toward her. His eyes were alert, scanning the corridors for any sign of pursuit. Who are you?" Emily whispered, her voice tight with fear. "Name S. Marco," he replied quietly. "I know what's going on." "You need to come with me now?" Emily hesitated, instinct screaming both warning and curiosity. She didn't know this man, yet his presence brought a flicker of hope. He moved with quiet precision, not a hint of hesitation. "I've been tracking Daniel for weeks. He's dangerous, and he's not alone," Marco explained, glancing toward the door. "If you stay here, they'll find you. Trust me." Emily's mind whirled. Could she trust him? The memory of Daniel's charm, his manipulations, ran like ice through her veins. But the alternative, remaining trapped in the dark, isolated, hunted, was worse. She nodded slowly, keeping her movements deliberate, careful. "Follow me," Marco whispered. They slipped through the narrow corridors, shadows swallowing them as they moved. Emily's pulse raced, each footstep measured, each breath silent. Marco led her through hidden passages, crew-only areas she hadn't seen before. The ship, which had felt like a maze earlier, now became a network of narrow escape routes under Marco's guidance. As they moved, Marco explained quietly, "Daniel runs a network, people, routes, contacts. He's charming, calculated, meticulous, but he's arrogant too. That arrogance is why I'm here. I've been waiting for someone like you to slip through the cracks." Emily swallowed hard, digesting the revelation. She realized that while her fear had trapped her, it had also sharpened her awareness. Every glance, every subtle warning she had ignored before now made sense. Daniel's network was precise, but like any system, it had vulnerabilities, if one knew where to look. The corridors twisted and turned, leading them to a service stairwell. Marco paused, pressing a finger to his lips, signaling her to stay quiet. From above, muffled voices approached. Emily's heart thudded violently. She pressed herself against the wall, trying to make herself small. The footsteps passed without noticing them. Breathing heavily, Emily followed Marco up the narrow staircase to the upper deck. The night air hit her face, carrying the scent of salt and the faint hum of the ocean. For a fleeting moment, she felt free, almost weightless. Almost. Then Marco stopped abruptly, glancing back at her. "Listen," he said, tone urgent. "I can get you out of here, but you need to be careful. Daniel will expect you to run, and he's prepared for every obvious move. One wrong step and we're both in serious trouble." Emily's chest tightened. Fear surged, but it was now mingled with a flicker of determination. She had seen the darkness behind Daniel's charm. She had glimpsed the machinery of betrayal. And now with Marco, she had a chance, slim, dangerous, but a chance nonetheless. A sudden shadow fell across the deck and Emily froze. Someone had spotted them, her stomach twisted. Marco's hand tightened around hers, guiding her into the nearest alcove. "Stay close," he hissed. "This is where it gets tricky." Emily's mind raced. She had trusted too easily before, ignored too many warnings. This time, she knew she had to rely on instinct, on caution, and on this unexpected ally at her side. And as the footsteps drew nearer, Emily realized the game was far from over. The night had only just begun, and the cost of a single misstep could be deadly. The sky had darkened to an ominous gray by late afternoon, heavy clouds rolling across the horizon. The ship pitched violently, as if the ocean itself had grown impatient. Rain lashed against the deck, drumming a relentless rhythm that mirrored the chaos in Emily's mind. The warnings she had ignored, the manipulations she had endured, all culminated in this moment. She could feel the storm as both a natural threat and a symbol of the danger surrounding her. Emily clung to the railing, wind whipping her hair across her face. The night was coming fast, and with it, Daniel's plans would reach their climax. Every instinct screamed at her to hide, yet she knew hiding would not be enough. The crew, the corridors, the shadows, everything had been arranged to disorient her, to break her resolve. Marco appeared suddenly at her side, soaked but alert. His expression was grim. "The storm's helping cover us," he shouted over the wind. "But we have to move fast, he knows we're here." Every minute we waste makes it harder to survive. Emily nodded, gripping his arm tightly. Her teeth chattered, not from cold, but from fear and anticipation. She had trusted before, and that trust had been betrayed. Now every step, every choice had to be calculated. One misstep and the storm would be her only witness. They navigated through slick decks, slipping past crew members who seemed more intent on procedure than concern. Emily's shoes left streaks across the wet wood, the sound mingling with the roar of the ocean. From above, the ship's lights flickered against the churning waves, casting distorted shadows that seemed alive. As they reached the upper promenade, a figure emerged from the shadows, Daniel. His expression was unreadable, calm, almost amused by the chaos surrounding them. "Beautiful storm, isn't it?" he called out, voice carrying over the wind. His eyes locked on Emily, and for a fraction of a second, she saw the charming predator she had once trusted. But the predator had been replaced by something far more dangerous, calculated, merciless, and entirely in control. Emily's heart pounded. Marco tightened his grip on her hand. "Stay behind me," he warned. Daniel's laughter cut through the storm, sharp and icy. "You think you can run from me?" he shouted. "Every path you take has already been anticipated. Every decision predicted. You're still playing by my rules, Emily." Emily's mind raced. The corridors, the exits, the stairwells, they were all part of Daniel's orchestration. The storm, though natural, seemed to amplify the chaos he had already designed. The ship pitched again, and Emily stumbled, nearly losing her footing. Marco steadied her, murmuring, "Don't panic." "We're close." From behind a stack of crates near the lifeboat deck, another shadow emerged, a crew member loyal to Marco. He handed them a small, wet map, pointing out a narrow service exit that led closer to freedom. The storm masked their movement, but Daniel's presence was never far, his figure flicking across the decks like a specter. Emily's hands shook as she followed the directions, each step a careful negotiation with the slippery surfaces and howling wind. The lifeboat area was just ahead, but the storm had worsened, rain slicing through the air like knives, visibility almost zero. Each wave made the deck pitch violently, threatening to throw her into the freezing sea below. Then a shout rang out, Daniel's voice closer than expected. "Going somewhere?" Emily froze. The illusion of safety shattered. The storm had not washed away the danger. It had only heightened it, forcing her to rely on every ounce of focus and courage she possessed. Marco grabbed her arm, pulling her into a narrow corridor, away from the lifeboat deck. The storm's roar masked their movement, but Daniel's eyes seemed everywhere. Emily realized with icy clarity, she was no longer running from a man. She was navigating a storm within a storm. The natural chaos of the ocean mirrored the human deception she faced, and she understood that surviving the storm meant outsmarting Daniel, not outrunning him. As thunder cracked overhead, the corridor ahead opened into a service hatch that could lead off the main deck entirely. Marco glanced at her, eyes sharp, voice low. "Once we go through there, there's no turning back. Are you ready?" Emily swallowed hard, her wet hair plastered to her face, pulse hammering, and nodded. The storm outside roared like a living beast, and she took a deep breath. The hatch door creaked open. The narrow service hatch opened into a pitch-black corridor, damp and claustrophobic, smelling faintly of salt and machinery oil. Emily's pulse raced as she followed Marco, the only sounds their soft footfalls and the distant rumble of the storm outside. Each shadow seemed alive, twisting and stretching in the flickering light from the occasional emergency lamp. "Keep moving," Marco whispered. "We're close." This passage leads to the lower service decks, away off the main deck where he can't predict our moves. Emily's hands shook, gripping the railing along the wall. Her legs ached from hours of running, slipping, and clinging to hope. Every instinct screamed that Daniel was near, that his carefully orchestrated control extended beyond her understanding. A sudden metallic clang echoed down the corridor. Emily froze, heart thundering, and pressed herself against the wall. Marco motioned her to duck behind a machinery unit, the shadows swallowing them. The sound repeated, deliberate and close, like someone pacing, searching. Daniel's voice cut through the darkness, low, cold, and unnervingly calm. "I can hear you breathing, Emily." "You think you can hide from me?" Emily's stomach twisted. Her mind reeled, trying to remember every detail she had observed before, every clue Marco had given her. She realized that while the storm and chaos had given them cover, the ship itself now seemed to conspire against her, each corridor a trap, each shadow a potential threat. "Stay calm," Marco whispered, his eyes scanning the corridor. "He wants to intimidate you. Don't let him see fear." Emily nodded, though terror burned through her veins. She gritted her teeth and focused on breathing, listening for every footstep, every faint sound that might signal movement. The corridor's damp walls reflected the faint light, creating shifting silhouettes that made it impossible to distinguish friend from foe. From ahead, a faint click, the sound of a door unlocking, made Emily's stomach drop. Daniel's shadow appeared at the end of the corridor, elongated and menacing, his posture deliberate, predatory. He took slow, measured steps, eyes locked on her. "You've been clever," he said, voice almost conversational. "But clever doesn't outsmart preparation. Every route you've taken was anticipated. Every hiding place accounted for. You're still playing by my rules." Emily's mind raced. The fear that had threatened to paralyze her was replaced by a razor-sharp focus. She had to act, and she had to act now. Marco tightened his grip on her arm, murmuring, "There's a small maintenance hatch just ahead. If we can reach it, there's a ladder leading below the crew quarters. We might have a chance." Emily nodded silently, calculating distance, timing, and the slightest hesitation in Daniel's steps. Each of his movements seemed choreographed, yet he underestimated her growing resolve. They moved, creeping along the corridor, hearts pounding. The faint sound of water dripping echoed in the darkness, masking their movement. Emily's fingers brushed a pipe running along the wall, tracing it as a guide, every step measured and deliberate. Suddenly, a door slammed somewhere nearby, the echo deafening. Daniel's head snapped toward the sound, and Emily seized the moment. She bolted toward the hatch, Marco right behind her. Daniel's shout rang out, sharp and furious. "Stop!" The chase became a blur. Emily slipped through the narrow hatch just as Daniel lunged, his hand grazing her jacket. The ladder inside descended steeply, slick with condensation, but Emily didn't hesitate. She climbed quickly, adrenaline lending strength to her trembling limbs. At the bottom, a small service passage opened into dimly lit corridors leading deeper into the ship. Emily's lungs burned, her arms ached, but she pressed on, following Marco's whispered directions. Behind them, she could hear Daniel's fury echoing faintly, the sound of a predator enraged, aware that his control was slipping. Emily realized, with cold clarity, that this confrontation in the dark was far from over. Daniel's manipulation, his web of deception, was extensive, but she had discovered something he hadn't anticipated. Determination forged from betrayal, fear transmuted into action. A final echo of footsteps reverberated above them. Emily's chest tightened as she looked at Marco. "We're not safe yet," he whispered. "But this is the turning point." Emily nodded, teeth clenched, wet hair plastered to her face, adrenaline coursing through her veins. The darkness was no longer just a trap, it was a battlefield. And as the shadows shifted around them, Emily realized that survival would require every ounce of courage, cunning, and strength she had left. The first pale light of dawn crept across the horizon, casting a fragile glow over the restless ocean. Emily stood on the upper deck, shivering, drenched from the storm and the night's chaos. The air smelled of salt, rain, and something faintly metallic, a reminder of the battles fought in the shadows. The nightmare that had consumed her for days was finally reaching its conclusion. Marco stood beside her, scanning the empty corridors and lifeboat areas. "We've done everything we could tonight," he said softly. "Now it's up to the authorities waiting in the port. Daniel's network, it ends here." Emily nodded, though her chest still tightened. She had survived, but survival had come at a cost. The memories of manipulation, betrayal, and terror etched deep into her mind. She recalled the faces of the other victims, the woman she had glimpsed in the dark, terrified yet defiant. Justice was not just about Daniel's capture. It was about the silent victims whose voices had been muffled for too long. The sound of approaching sirens carried faintly from the dock, growing louder, merging with the calls of the ship's crew. Emily's stomach twisted with a mixture of relief and apprehension. Law enforcement would handle the rest. The arrests, the evidence, the trial, but the emotional aftermath would be hers to navigate. Marco guided her to a secure area where officers waited, clipboards in hand, radios crackling. "Stay close," he murmured. They'll need your statement, your identification of Daniel. It's important. Emily followed, her steps hesitant but steady. Each stride brought her closer to freedom, closer to the world beyond the ship. Yet the memories of Daniel's manipulation lingered like shadows in the corners of her mind. She had been deceived, terrorized, and hunted, but she had also fought, resisted, and survived. Officers approached, badges gleaming faintly in the early light. One of them, a woman with sharp eyes and a calm presence, extended a hand. "Emily, we've been briefed. You're safe now." "We'll take it from here." Emily exhaled slowly, gripping her own hands to keep them from trembling. She gave a nod, offering a small, tentative smile. The storm was over, the night's darkness receding, but the journey toward healing was just beginning. Marco stepped back, watching her hand over the officer's shoulder. "You did everything right," he said quietly. "You survived, that counts more than anything." Emily's eyes scanned the ship one last time. It was quiet now, almost serene, as if the vessel itself were reflecting the calm after the storm. The memory of Daniel's shadowy figure, his manipulations, his cruel precision, was still there, but it was diminished by the presence of law, order, and accountability. Justice finally was approaching. As the authorities moved onto the ship, Emily felt a strange mixture of relief and exhaustion. She was safe, but she also carried the weight of what she had endured, and what others had endured because of Daniel. She realized that survival was only the first step. Telling her story, exposing the truth, was the next. The early morning sun broke fully over the horizon, reflecting gold across the water. Emily's heart lifted slightly at the sight. The storm had passed, the darkness receded, and the world seemed, for the first time in days, tangible and real. She was no longer a pawn in Daniel's game. She had reclaimed her agency, her voice, her future. An officer approached and gestured for her to follow, guiding her down the gangway toward the waiting authorities. Emily took a deep, steadying breath, stepping forward. Each step felt heavier with the past, yet lighter with the promise of accountability. As the ship faded behind her, Emily allowed herself a moment to look up at the brightening sky. She had survived the storm, both literal and metaphorical. Justice was no longer a distant hope. It was here, tangible and inevitable. And for the first time, she allowed herself to believe that life beyond terror, beyond manipulation, could begin again.